Many of the thousands of Australians taken prisoner by the Japanese during the Second World War didn't survive to tell their stories. They died in brutal conditions in forced labour camps, some of near starvation and tropical disease. Now, more than 60 years on, a group of POWs who died while trying to escape captivity is being honoured with a special commendation for gallantry. And with Anzac Day not far away, a search is on across Australia to try to find their relatives so that they can accept the awards in their name. Mike Sexton reports.
Bill Schmidt will soon be 93. That he's lived to such a grand age is remarkable, given he almost died of amoebic dysentery during 3.5 years as a prisoner of the Japanese. And perhaps just as remarkable is his decision not to harbour hatred for his former captors.
I've got no animosity with the Japanese. I mean, I've forgiven them 50 years ago. Weary Dunlop and I talked about this a lot. And it was pointless going on hating people. I mean, hate doesn't do you any good. You only upset yourself.
But when the Japanese foreign minister apologised in March to a group of former prisoners, Bill Schmidt wasn't interested.
Well, you've got quite a different government in Japan. They wouldn't even know anything about the war. And so, you know, to me it's a bit of a joke. But and how sincere it is, you don't know.
However, there is one select group of former POWs whose recent honouring has been welcomed by all. The Department of Defence is to award 20 servicemen who were killed while attempting to escape from the Japanese posthumous commendations for gallantry. The decision is the result of the persistence of retired Adelaide defence scientist and military history buff John Bradford.
I developed an interest in Australian prisoners of war because I subsequently found that no Australian prisoners of war, or basically none, in the serving in Malaya, Singapore, who'd attempted to escape, had been recognised.
During the Second World War, servicemen who lost their lives making genuine escape attempts were eligible for the award of posthumous mention in dispatches. Through extensive research, both here and in Britain, John Bradford found that of the 63 men he knew who had suffered this fate in Europe, including 15 Australians, all but one had received posthumous recognition. Yet of 22 Australians who lost their lives in similar circumstances in the Far East, only 2 received posthumous recognition.
Over the years, I have encountered or met a number of the next of kin. And obviously, when I first told them of the news, they were absolutely flabbergasted that this had occurred in 1945, that the men had been overlooked for recognition. And of course, they'd never been told anything about it.
Very brave boys, and they were only boys.
Among those John Bradford contacted was Judy Mutimer, who was only 8 years old when her older brothers Frank and Aubrey went to war and were taken prisoner by the Japanese.
I think the last communication we had from Orb was on the fall of Singapore. After he'd been wounded and went to hospital, he sent a telegram to say that he and his brother are well, don't worry.
Aubrey Emmett was among a group of prisoners who broke out of a camp at the Burmese port of Tavoy. After several days on the run, they were recaptured and executed.
I saw them coming back in a truck, and they were standing up in the back of the truck. Oh, God, here we go. They was brave as hell to do it. I'll give them that.
For years, John Bradford was frustrated that no officials would listen to the stories of the likes of Aubrey Emmett and the oversight keeping them off the honour roll. Then in July 2009, he was asked to make a submission to the Honours and Awards Tribunal. And after considering his work, last year the tribunal agreed he was right. What was your reaction to that?
Well, obviously I felt vindicated, but more than that, I think I felt relieved.
John's persisted with it for many, many years. It should have been done many years ago when the families of those fellows were still alive and could appreciate it. Now you're getting into a generation that probably never even knew who they were and just knew of them, perhaps.
66 years after they were originally recommended for awards, the commendations have brought a mix of emotions for relatives and former comrades. And for John Bradford, confirmation of the importance of history and finding the truth.
I get very little pleasure in having achieved this, but certainly I had the feeling of relief that at last somebody had listened to what the various arguments I'd been putting up for years, and had decided that that I had a strong case for these men to receive recognition.
And the full list of recipients is at the Defence Honours Tribunal's website, www.defence-honours-tribunal.gov.au, or you can contact the Tribunal on 1800 111 321.